An army soldier who was well trained stood his ground in the middle of Germany's vast fields. His home country was filled with memories of a close friend who was going to join him abroad. They went out as a pair because they had shared events and were friends. Fate took a turn on the famous German Autobahn that no one saw coming, and serious illness hit him out of the blue, making him feel very uneasy. Because he was scared, he ran for the side of the road, which was a very important move against his disease's fierce attack. But it didn't matter how hard he tried. His illness kept getting worse, bringing him closer and closer to giving up. A strange cloud of darkness fell over the world while things were going crazy. In this cloudy void, consciousness faded away. Luckily, Hobart, the man in the seat next to me, had worked in breathing therapy for 30 years. It wasn't until the car suddenly went off course that Hobart realized his friend's health was getting worse. He took over and carefully drove the car to safety on the shoulder of the Autobahn. The car stopped, and Hobart heard a strange sound called a death rattle. He was dealing with a paradox in the middle of all the noise. He wasn't breathing, but he had to right away. He felt strangely disconnected as he watched his otherworldly self hover above, bathed in an iridescent light in a vast nothingness. Suddenly, he was pulled towards the middle of this bright, eerie column. Hobart found out that a sudden brightness didn't hurt his eyes. The flash of light went into the dark. A unique aspect of this cosmic chiaroscuro, the way the shadows within shadows interacted with each other, made people think deeply about how we see things. This weird show was very different from his normal life, which was full of constant pain and suffering from his time in the military, where he hurt his left knee badly, broke his back, strained his neck, and sprained his left ankle. During this short stay, all pain ended and peace and well-being were restored. Minutes, hours, days, and weeks had no value in this short world. His interest won out over his fear, but he couldn't tell anyone what he had learnt. He didn't really remember how he got to this strange land, but his fear had gone away and was replaced by a desire to find out more. There was an unspoken rule against thinking about oneself, but a strong desire to explore the unknown came up. In this meditative haven, a voice spoke that had never been heard before. It was clear and felt like 1,000 rivers coming together. The mysterious voice asked, "What do you want?" His statement, "I yearn to forge ahead," was pretty simple, but it had big effects. Once more, the voice asked, "What about Becky and the girls?" There were only thoughts of his wife of 30 years and their 2 teenage girls in his mind. He replied with confidence, "Becky is always strong. She will raise our daughters with perfect strength." No one knew who the voice was while the conversation went on. A fog came up and blocked out his memories. After being shocked, it made him say, "Okay, what comes next?" But he couldn't figure out who it was. It was freezing when he woke up, and he was curled up in a snowbank on the side of the road. The cold was seeping through his clothes. He got out of the driver's seat, and his close friend Hobart tried to wake him up but failed. As a last option, Hobart tried an unusual cardiac thump even though it wasn't recommended by standard practice. He was desperate for a breakthrough. Surprisingly, this hard blow to the chest was what started a chain of events that would become very important to the story. Later, when he opened his eyes, they were blurry, like a thick cloud was over him. The warmth of his body had made the snow give way under him, making a big hole in the snowbank. At a strange time, with steam rising, he was physically struggling while Hobart took over and guided him into the passenger seat. Hobart wasn't bothered by the strange place or the German language. With a determined look on his face, Hobart rushed to get help before time ran out. They drove for a few miles until they reached a petrol station. Hobart quickly told the attendant what was going on by making a lot of hand movements to show how serious their situation was. The caring worker ran out because they felt compelled to, and saw a passenger who was upset. Her quick choice to call an ambulance after checking out the terrible situation in the car herself gave people hope when they thought the worst was about to happen. When going through this foreign country, German paramedics stood out because they had trained doctors on board. The doctor quickly gave him 2 shots in the thighs through the material of his blue pants. In answer, amazingly, some progress started to show. Eventually getting his words back, he turned to his loyal friend Hobart and asked, "Why did you do that?" Eventually, their journey led them to a hospital in Germany, where the staff were understanding of his situation. The helpful staff at this medical haven got him ready for the medevac flight to Walter Reed Army Hospital after he had stayed there for 2 nights. He sincerely asked the German officials the night before the flight to allow him to stay at home for a short time so that the necessary preparations could be made. In order to make sense of the supernatural and the real, he went to Hobart more than once for comfort when he was feeling both doubt and resolve. He asked over and over, "Are you sure that I was dead?" It looked like these constant questions were bothering his loyal friend. With absolute certainty, Hobart said, "Yes, I can categorically state that you were clinically deceased." On the night he got back home, he was tense, irritable, and felt deeply uneasy. The strange events of the past few days made it hard for him to connect the unexplainable with what he knew about reality. Death stayed a mysterious idea, and his events were hard to understand. These wild thoughts wouldn't stop going through his mind until he had to go outside into the dark because he felt compelled to. Anytime it got dark, he was dragged outside under the patio cover, no matter what time of day it was. The southwest corner showed him an otherworldly brightness, a hint of the moon's soft light that grew into a deep sight. He cautiously walked past the awning's shade and saw Jesus sitting on a spotless white throne. Incredulous blinks made him question his senses. The picture went on to show that Jesus was sitting proudly on his throne made of angels. He fell to his knees in shame and put his shaking hands over his face. This realization made him sick. With his fingers he could feel the bright, always present divine presence sitting on the throne. Next came the Lord's Prayer and a short time of kneeling on the snow. Once they were brave enough to look again, the celestial show was gone, leaving only the familiar constellations and the peaceful moon visible in the vast night sky. Even though tears were falling, there was more and more peace in the chaos. He went home and turned on the TV right away because he thought that such a big religious event would captivate everyone and fill the radio. He was shocked to learn that this amazing connection was just for him. He stopped being skeptical and was sure the event was real. In that magical moment, something deep sopped into his life. His belief was that God existed and that Jesus, God's Son, was a gift from God. Without any question or skepticism, the Holy Spirit, the Lord's Spirit coming to earth, became real. He gives his moving story and makes it clear that he had a real experience with God. Even though it couldn't be seen, the all-knowing presence made people feel awe and deep feeling. In the end, he asks for polite comments. He wishes everyone happiness and safety before the next part. To thank people for their support, he asks them to subscribe, turn on alerts, and join the group. He thanks everyone who came and tells them to come back for more amazing content.